Wait. Is this a Lord of the Rings based text adventure that I have actually completed? Why yes, it is! Now, if you haven't watched my videos about previous text adventures based on the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, you might wonder why that matters. This is why I would advise to watch all of them first, links are in the description and YouTube cards, because in this review, to save time, I am assuming you know my overall points about those games. So without further ado, let's take a look at the final Lord of the Rings text adventure game, like in previous videos based on the Commodore 64 version, and as always, with the help of my Stasocritic scoring system. We start with design. This category has a weight of 4 because it is about the most important part of any game, how it actually plays. Let me tell you about some of my experiences with Crack of Doom, in which you can play only as Sam. My first playthrough I took too long to save Frodo from Cirith Ungol, long enough that the Nazgul flying from Barad-dûr snatched the poor Hobbit as we were exiting the fortress. But it wasn't a game over because I still had the ring, so I figured maybe I can still destroy it without Frodo. No, if you get to the titular Crack of Doom, Sam will be overcome by the ring's temptation and it's game over. I then thought, inspired by the stories of how in The Hobbit there was a player who killed Smaug with Gollum's dead body, maybe I can kill Gollum, put the ring on his body, and then carry the body into the Crack of Doom and throw the two together. It would have been so awesome if my idea had worked, and it almost did. The problem is that when Sam is anywhere near the ring, while at the screen where the ring has to be destroyed, he takes it for himself and the game is over. The only way to beat the Crack of Doom is to actually recreate the situation from the book. Get Frodo with the ring to the mountain and also make sure to not kill Gollum on the way so he would be able to chop off Frodo's finger and fall into the fire himself with the ring. Which puts the game into a very weird situation. It is very systemic, like The Hobbit. Every NPC has their own schedule and AI patterns, a large variety of actions that you can do, and a wide range of possible outcomes in different situations. It also is much more consistent than The Hobbit. That being said, at the end of the day, it is exceptionally linear despite the possible choices. Even though at the start screen you can go right into Mordor instead of Cirith Ungol, you won't be able to beat the game that way without Frodo, you have to recreate events as they happened in the books. Though to be fair, not always. For example, you don't have to disguise yourself as orcs necessarily, and can avoid the patrols on the plains of Gorgoroth rather than blend with them, so this restrictiveness applies mostly to the ending of the game. It doesn't feel that frustrating to replay it, however, because the overall scope of the world is relatively small. There is essentially just Cirith Ungol and some variety of terrain and dangers in Mordor. So if you get yourself into an unbeatable situation and don't have a valid earlier save, it doesn't feel like a huge loss to restart and try again. And that's the reason which ultimately leads to me assigning a 6 to the Crack of Doom. It's a pretty basic experience that doesn't really utilize the strengths set up by the original Hobbit systems, but also it actually works properly and consistently, so can't complain there, really. Let's discuss context. This category has a weight of 1 as it's about things that enhance the experience rather than define it, plot, motivations, etc. I won't repeat the things I have said already in previous videos related to the manual and the motivation setup, because all the points apply to Crack of Doom as well. The positive difference being that with such a relatively tight focus on the journey between Cirith Ungol and Mount Doom itself, Crack of Doom actually manages to delve deeper into some character development. For example, Frodo throughout the journey gets increasingly more exhausted by the burden of the ring, we have to comfort him and then eventually carry, which in the context of this being a game works really well as the recontextualization of the carry command you usually perform for items. And while the game might be funneling you into one particular solution at the end, all the various alternative scenarios regarding different situations are pretty well thought out in the context of the world. Sam indeed would not be able to resist the temptation of the ring either, and with Frodo being captured in Cirith Ungol, yeah, there would be a Nazgul in their way so they could bring him to Sauron. Not to mention how all that still plays into the aspect of players creating their own stories, albeit in a much more limited fashion than in The Hobbit. So should you open up all the scores for context, I will assign a 6. The Crack of Doom goes beyond the core needs of the narrative without which the game wouldn't make sense, and while there's still a lot to be done for the story as told by the Crack of Doom to have an emotional impact as big as the source material, its improvements are appreciated. Moving on to aesthetics. This is another category with the weight of 1, as it's again about things that enhance the experience rather than define it. This time through visuals, sounds, and in case of such adventure games, text, as it defines what we imagine in our heads. I'm going to open up all the scores right now and assign a 5, because my points are exactly the same as in the 2 previous videos. Time to discuss cohesion. This category has a weight of 2 and it examines how well a game connects everything into a singular cohesive whole. Out of all the previous Lord of the Rings text adventure games, the Crack of Doom is the closest to actually feeling like a truly cohesive Lord of the Rings adventure. The game evokes feelings of hardship and friendship through its gameplay systems and commands, and the solutions to problems are all based on the book source material. I will assign a 7 to the Crack of Doom because it does feel like you're on a final stretch of a journey to destroy the One Ring once and for all. But at the same time, a number of arbitrary limits keep reminding us that, at the end of the day, it is still just a text adventure game. We get to the final category, emotions. The most subjective part of Stasocritic, but it has the second biggest weight, 3, because personal feelings matter a lot. I'm not a fan of saying things in the vein of this is what another game should have been, but the Crack of Doom is what the Fellowship of the Ring should have been in terms of overall quality. In this particular case, the comparison fits because, well, the Crack of Doom leaves you desiring an even better and improved sequel, but it is actually the end of a 4-game series. Now that things have actually improved, there is nothing left to look forward to. You might have noticed, though, that despite this adventure being clearly better than the previous ones, there is a distinct lack of, should I say, enthusiasm? In some ways, I feel hollow writing this. A sort of struggle to find words or the desire to actually write the script, which quite honestly took much more time than a video of this length usually does. It's not due to any negative feelings or lack of enjoyment though, more like a sense of dissatisfaction that this text-adventure series didn't end with a bang, but with just a normally enjoyable game, to which I will assign an 8 for emotions. After destroying the ring and surviving the deed, I have no real desire to come back to the Crack of Doom. Let's summarize everything. After taking all scores and their weights into account, the Crack of Doom gets a final Stasocritic rating of 63. It is actually a nice, well-done game. It also is not that memorable to deserve a strong recommendation. Again, The Hobbit was a very messy game, but it created a very strong impression and I think is worth playing regardless. The Crack of Doom is a more limited version of The Hobbit, but it's far more polished and consistent. So it really depends on how much you like the Lord of the Rings and text adventure games. But at the very least, I am glad that this series has actually ended with a solid effort.